My dad tore me apart in our family chat the day before my 25th birthday. He said, "Your parties are as pathetic as you. Brittany, nobody cares about your sad little life." My brother Tyler piled on, calling me a loner who'd be stuck celebrating alone. I was gutted, especially since I've been paying their rent and bills for the past 2 years. Those words burned, and I kept rereading them feeling worthless. Family drama hit you hard too. Comment your story or subscribe now. Brittany Miller had made a name for herself in Seattle's tech scene by 25. She'd built a hit mobile game Pixel Rush that went viral when she was 23, pulling in 6 figures annually from freelance app development for startups. Back in high school, she'd skipped parties to teach herself coding, building her first app at 16, instead of chasing boys or cheerleading tryouts. Her parents' messy divorce at 14 left her with her dad, Bob, a part-time mechanic scraping by on $1,500 a month, and her 17-year-old brother, Tyler, a high school junior obsessed with basketball. 2 years ago, Brittany's success changed everything for her family. Their rundown apartment's rent, $1,800 monthly, was a constant stress for Bob, so she took it over. She also covered utilities and groceries, another $1,000, and paid $500 a month for Tyler's private basketball coach to boost his college prospects. In total, Brittany shelled out $3,300 every month, more than Bob's entire income. She saw it as a way to keep her family afloat while Bob recovered from the divorce and Tyler chased his dreams. At first, Bob called her his lifesaver, and Tyler sent goofy thank you texts. But the gratitude faded fast. Bob started texting demands for extra cash, $200 for a new TV, $300 for car trouble, without a hint of thanks. Tyler blew her money on designer sneakers and a PlayStation, bragging to friends about his setup, but never mentioning Brittany's help. When she called Bob to catch up, he'd interrupt with rants about his boss or the landlord barely asking about her life. Tyler ignored her texts unless he needed money for a team trip or new gear. Brittany felt invisible, like a bank account, not a daughter or sister. Her long hours coding left her drained and lonely, with few friends to lean on. She poured her heart into planning her 25th birthday party at her sleek downtown apartment, hoping to feel alive again. She spent weeks choosing string lights and custom coasters with Pixel Rush logos, dropping $800 on catering and craft cocktails. This wasn't just a party, it was her shot at proving she wasn't the loner her family saw. Bursting with pride, she sent photos of the setup to the family chat, expecting Bob and Tyler to cheer her on. Brittany's fingers trembled as she hit send on the family chat, sharing photos of her birthday party setup, string lights twinkling over her apartment coasters, with Pixel Rush logos and a catering spread worth $800. She'd poured her heart into this, hoping Bob and Tyler would see her effort and maybe even say they were proud. The message popped up at 6 p.m. on Friday, the day before her 25th birthday. "All set for tomorrow. Super excited. You guys can come if you're free." She added a party popper emoji, her stomach fluttering with anticipation. Bob's reply came within minutes, and it was a gut punch. "Brittany, your parties are as pathetic as you are. Nobody's showing up to this sad excuse for a celebration." Brittany froze, staring at her phone in disbelief. Her dad's words echoed the cruel jab from the day before. But this was worse public in their family chat, where Tyler could see. She typed back, hands shaking, "What, Bob? I've got RSVPs. People are coming." Bob fired again. "You're kidding yourself. You're too busy playing tech genius to have real friends, just like your mom, always chasing dreams nobody cares about." That hit like a knife. Brittany's mom had walked out when she was 14, leaving them for a better life in California. Bob knew how much that abandonment stung, yet he weaponized it to tear her down. Tyler jumped in, piling on, "Yay, Brittany, you're basically a hermit. When's the last time you hung out with anyone? Cancel this before you embarrass yourself." Brittany's throat tightened. She replied, "I have friends, Tyler. You don't know my life." Bob shot back, "Friends? You mean those nerds you work with? They're just being polite. Nobody wants to spend their Saturday with you." Tyler added, "For real, just order takeout and chill. Parties aren't your thing. Remember your 16th birthday when nobody showed? That was a low blow. Brittany had invited her whole class to a bowling alley for her 16th, but only 3 kids came. She'd cried in the bathroom, and Bob had promised to never bring it up again. Now he let Tyler use it against her. Bob chimed in, "Tyler's right. You're not cut out for this, Brittany. Stick to your computers, it's the only thing you're good at." Brittany's eyes burned with tears. She typed, "This is my birthday. Why are you doing this?" Bob's final message was cold. "Just trying to save you from looking like a fool. You'll thank me later." Tyler sealed it. "Whatever, Brittany. Don't say we didn't warn you." She slammed her phone down and sobbed, the weight of their words crushing her. For 2 years, she'd paid their rent, $1,800 monthly, groceries, utilities, and Tyler's basketball coaching, $3,300 total every month. And this was how they repaid her, by calling her pathetic and friendless on the eve of her birthday. She almost canceled the party. The doubt crept in. Maybe they were right, maybe nobody would come. But Brittany shook it off. She'd spent weeks planning, and her friends had confirmed. She wasn't that scared 16-year-old anymore. Saturday evening arrived, and her apartment buzzed with life. 15 people showed up, more than she'd hoped. Sarah Thompson, her best friend from college who now worked in marketing, brought a homemade cake with Pixel Rush Queen written in icing. Jason Lee, a fellow coder from her latest project, cracked jokes about their crunch time coding sessions. Linda Carter, her neighbor who ran a local bakery, gifted her a set of custom dessert plates. The room filled with laughter and chatter. Sarah raised a glass, toasting Brittany's grit. "This girl built a Game Millions play, and she still finds time for us." "Here's to you, Brittany." Everyone cheered, and Brittany's chest swelled with warmth. Jason shared how Brittany had stayed up all night debugging his code when he was drowning in deadlines. Linda recounted how Brittany helped redesign her bakery's website for free, saving her business during a rough patch. These weren't fake friends or polite nerds. They knew her quirks, like her obsession with retro game consoles and her habit of humming game soundtracks while cooking. They liked her for who she was. The party was a hit. Jason hooked up his laptop for an impromptu Pixel Rush tournament, and guests shouted over the clinking of glasses. Linda's teenage son, who'd tagged along, declared it the coolest party ever. Sarah snapped photos, Brittany laughing with Jason Linda, passing out cupcakes, the group cheering as Brittany blew out her candles. For the first time in months, Brittany felt seen not as the tech whiz footing her family's bills, but as a person with a life worth celebrating. Around 9 p.m., her phone pinged. It was Bob. "So anybody show up, or you sitting there alone? No apology, no warmth, just a jab disguised as curiosity." Brittany's stomach twisted, but she wasn't letting him ruin this. She sent back a photo of the packed room, everyone singing happy birthday, as Sarah held up the cake. Bob's reply was a curt, "Guess some people came. Have fun." No regret for his cruelty. No acknowledgement of how he'd tried to crush her. Tyler didn't bother texting at all. As the night wound down, Brittany sat on her couch, surrounded by empty plates and fading music, replaying the family chat in her head. Bob's comparison to her mom wasn't just mean, it was calculated. He'd always resented how Brittany's drive mirrored her mom's ambition, even though she'd stayed to hold the family together. Tyler's jab about her 16th birthday showed he'd been talking to Bob, planning to hit her where it hurt. She opened the chat and screenshot every message, Bob's pathetic rant, Tyler's hermit dig the mom comparison, all of it. Something felt off, like this wasn't a one-off, but part of a pattern. She thought back to the past 2 years. Bob's demands for extra cash, $200 for a TV, $300 for car trouble, had grown bolder, always paired with complaints about her fancy tech life. Tyler's silence, unless he needed money for sneakers or trips, felt like contempt. They weren't just ungrateful, they resented her. Brittany's success, her apartment, her game, all of it seemed to make them feel small, and they lashed out to drag her down. The party proved they were wrong about her friends, but it also proved something else: her family didn't value her, not as a person, not even as their provider. By midnight, the last guests left, and Brittany cleaned up alone, the screenshots still open on her phone. She saved them to her cloud time-stamped and made backups. She wasn't sure why yet, but she knew she needed proof. Bob and Tyler's words weren't just hurtful, they were a betrayal. She'd spent $3,300 a month to keep them afloat, and they'd repaid her with scorn. As she stacked the coasters and tossed out paper plates, a resolve hardened in her chest. She couldn't keep funding people who despised her. Something had to change. Brittany woke up the morning after her 25th birthday with a clarity she hadn't felt in years. The screenshots from the family chat, Bob's pathetic rant, Tyler's hermit jab, the stinging comparison to her mom, sat backed up in her cloud, a digital record of betrayal. For 2 years, she'd poured $3,300 a month into her family's lives, $1,800 for rent, $1,000 for utilities and groceries, $500 for Tyler's basketball coaching. She'd done it out of love, but their cruelty in the chat proved they didn't just take her money for granted, they despised her for having it. Brittany wasn't going to bankroll their resentment anymore. She spent the next week thinking it through, replaying every interaction. Bob's demands for extra cash, $200 for a TV, $300 for car trouble, always came with a dig about her fancy tech life. Tyler's silence unless he needed money for sneakers or trips felt like a slap. Even before the birthday incident, they'd mocked her. Last Christmas, when she'd shared news about a big app contract, Bob had scoffed, "Must be nice to get paid for playing games all day." Tyler had rolled his eyes, muttering, "Yeah, Brittany, we get it. You're a big deal." She'd brushed it off then, but now it was clear they resented her success, and the birthday chat was just the breaking point. Brittany didn't want revenge. She wanted respect. She decided to cut off all financial support cleanly and permanently. First, she pulled up her bank accounts and canceled the automatic rent payments for Bob's apartment. She emailed the landlord to confirm she was no longer responsible for the $1,800 monthly lease. Next, she stopped the utility and grocery payments, notifying the companies to transfer the bills back to Bob's name. She canceled the $500 monthly transfer for Tyler's basketball coach, texting the coach directly to explain. Finally, she called her property manager and demanded Bob return the spare key to the apartment she'd been renting for them, a key he'd insisted on keeping for emergencies. Brittany wasn't falling for that anymore. To make it official, she consulted a lawyer friend, Rachel, who confirmed Brittany had no legal obligation to continue payments. The money she'd given, over $79,000 in 2 years, was legally a gift, not a loan. Rachel also advised documenting everything, so Brittany compiled the screenshots, bank statements, and text logs of Bob's demands and Tyler's requests. She calculated every penny, $3,300 a month, times 24 months plus extras, like Tyler's team trips, and Bob's emergency cash. It was a staggering sum, and she'd never asked for a single thank you. On Monday, November 3rd, Brittany sent a message to the family chat at 8 a.m. "Bob, Tyler, I've thought a lot about our relationship and your recent messages. Effective immediately, I'm stopping all financial support. I've canceled the rent payments of $1,800, utilities and groceries of $1,000, and Tyler's coaching of $500. Bob, you need to return the apartment key by Friday. The landlord and utility companies have been notified. This is final. I wish you both well." She hit send, her heart pounding but steady. Her phone exploded within minutes. Bob called 17 times in the first hour, leaving voicemails that started angry and turned desperate. "Brittany, what the hell is this? You're cutting us off over a stupid group chat. You're gonna make us homeless." Tyler texted a string of messages. "You're seriously doing this. I'll lose my coach. You're ruining my shot at college." Brittany didn't answer. She'd expected the blowback, but the venom in their words still stung. Bob's next text was a low blow. "You're just like your mom, selfish, abandoning your family when we need you most." Tyler followed, "Everyone's gonna know you ditched us. Good luck living with that." By noon, Bob had escalated. He called her ungrateful and heartless, claiming he'd sacrificed everything to raise her after her mom left. Tyler sent a voice message, his voice shaking with rage. "You think you're better than us because you've got money. You're nothing without us, Brittany." She saved every message, every voicemail, adding them to her growing file. Their refusal to apologize for the birthday chat or even acknowledge it proved she'd made the right call. They weren't sorry. They were scared of losing her cash. The harassment didn't stop there. Bob started a smear campaign texting family members about Brittany's betrayal. Her aunt, Karen. Bob's older sister called that afternoon, her voice dripping with disapproval. "Brittany, how could you do this to your dad? He's struggling and you're throwing him out on the street. Family doesn't abandon family." Brittany tried to explain the birthday chat, but Karen cut her off. "That's just Bob being Bob. You're too sensitive." Brittany hung up her hands, shaking. Karen's words echoed Bob's gaslighting, and it hurt more than she expected. By evening, her cousin Mark, Karen's son, sent a long text. "You're acting like you're above everyone else, Brittany. Money doesn't make you special. Fix this before you tear the family apart." Even Bob's coworker, a guy Brittany had met once, messaged her on Facebook. "Your dad's a wreck because of you. Show some respect." Brittany was stunned. Bob had spun a story that painted her as a cold, selfish daughter who'd cut him off for no reason. He left out the part where she'd paid $3,300 a month for 2 years, or how he'd called her pathetic and compared her to her mom. The worst came 2 days later, on November 5th. Bob sent a new message. "Brittany, we were just messing with you about the party. It was a joke families tease each other. You're blowing this out of proportion." Tyler backed him up. "Yeah, we didn't mean it. You know we love you. Why are you doing this?" Brittany's blood boiled. They were trying to rewrite history, pretending their cruelty was teasing. She pulled up the screenshots. Bob's "nobody's showing up." Tyler's hermit jab the mom dig and reread them. No, this wasn't a joke. It was deliberate, and their lies now only fueled her resolve. She didn't respond. Instead, she blocked Bob and Tyler's numbers to stop the barrage of calls and texts. She also blocked Karen and Mark, whose messages had turned nastier, accusing her of destroying the family. The silence was a relief, but it didn't erase the pain. Brittany felt like she was grieving not just for the family she thought she had, but for the version of herself who believed she could buy their love with money. She'd spent $79,000 trying to prove she was a good daughter, a good sister, only to be mocked and resented. To cope, Brittany leaned on her friends. She showed Sarah the screenshots over coffee, and Sarah's jaw dropped. "Brittany, this is emotional abuse. You've been more than generous. They don't get to treat you like this." Jason, her coder friend, agreed. "You're not their ATM. They're mad because they can't control you anymore." Linda, her neighbor, invited her over for tea and listened as Brittany poured out her hurt. "You deserve people who value you," Linda said, squeezing her hand. Their support grounded her, reminding her she wasn't the pathetic loner Bob and Tyler claimed. Brittany also started journaling, a habit she'd never tried before. She wrote about every slight, Bob's snide remarks about her job, Tyler's eye rolls when she talked about her game, the way they'd ignored her unless they needed cash. She wrote about the birthday chat, how Bob's mom comparison had ripped open old wounds from her mom's abandonment. The journal became a lifeline, helping her process the anger and sadness. She realized she'd been carrying guilt for years, thinking she had to fix Bob's struggles and Tyler's future to prove she wasn't like her mom. But their cruelty showed her the truth. She couldn't fix their resentment, no matter how much money she gave. By the end of the week, Brittany saw the financial toll of her generosity. The $3,300 a month, $79,000 over 2 years, could have gone to her own dreams. She could have bought a condo, traveled to Japan, like she'd always wanted, or invested in her next app. Instead, she'd lived frugally, skipping vacations and eating instant noodles to keep her family comfortable. Bob's $1,500 monthly income couldn't cover the $1,800 rent, let alone utilities or groceries. Tyler had no job, and his basketball coaching was now gone. They were in trouble, and Brittany knew it, but she wasn't going back. On November 7th, Bob showed up at her apartment unannounced, banging on the door. "Brittany, open up. We need to talk." She froze her heart, racing. She'd told him to mail the key, not come in person. Through the peephole, she saw his red face, his fists clenched. She didn't open the door. Instead, she called Sarah, who rushed over for support. Bob left after 20 minutes, but not before slipping a note under the door. "You're breaking my heart, Brittany. I thought you were better than this. No apology, just more guilt-tripping." Sarah stayed until Brittany calmed down. "You did the right thing," she said. "They're panicking because they're losing control." Brittany nodded, but the note shook her. She wondered if she was being too harsh, if she should give them another chance. Then she reread the screenshots, Bob's pathetic, Tyler's hermit, the mom jab. No, she wasn't the villain here. She'd given them everything and they'd spat in her face. She mailed the note to Rachel, her lawyer friend, adding it to her documentation. The next day, Brittany got a call from an unknown number. It was Tyler using a friend's phone. His voice was softer, almost pleading. "Brittany, I can't lose my coach. I won't get a scholarship without him. Please, just talk to us." For a moment, she wavered. Tyler was still her little brother. But then she remembered his text. "Everyone's gonna know you ditched us." He wasn't sorry. He was desperate. "Tyler," she said, "you and Bob need to figure this out. I'm done." She hung up her hands, trembling, but her resolve firm. As the week ended, Brittany felt a mix of relief and exhaustion. The harassment had taken a toll, but cutting off Bob and Tyler felt like reclaiming her life. She wasn't sure what would happen next. Would they lose the apartment? Would Tyler drop his coaching? But she knew she couldn't go back to being their bank. The screenshots, the journal, her friends' support, they all reminded her she was worth more than their cruelty. She braced herself for what came next, knowing Bob and Tyler wouldn't give up easily. Brittany's life felt quieter after cutting off Bob and Tyler, but the silence was heavy. For 2 weeks after her decision to end financial support, $3,300 a month for rent, utilities, groceries, and Tyler's basketball coaching, she braced for more attacks. The screenshots of their cruel birthday chat messages, Bob's voicemails calling her heartless, and Tyler's texts accusing her of ruining his future were all saved a reminder of why she'd drawn the line. She'd spent $79,000 over 2 years to keep them afloat, only to be mocked as pathetic, and compared to her mom who'd abandoned them. Yet as the days passed, Brittany felt a flicker of doubt. Had she been too harsh? Could they change? She pushed the thoughts aside, focusing on work and her friends, but the ache of losing her family lingered. On November 15th, a letter arrived at Brittany's apartment, slipped under her door. It was from Bob, written in his uneven scrawl. "Brittany," it began. "I've messed up bad. I said things in that chat I can't take back, and I'm ashamed. I was wrong to call you pathetic and bring up your mom that was cruel. I've been a lousy dad leaning on you when I should have been supporting you. I'm sorry." The letter went on 3 pages long, detailing how Bob had resented Brittany's success because it highlighted his own failures. He admitted to feeling like a nobody next to her, a mechanic scraping by on $1,500 a month, while his daughter built a tech empire. He'd lashed out to feel bigger, not realizing how deeply he'd hurt her. Brittany read it twice, her emotions tangled. Bob's words seemed sincere, but she'd heard his excuses before. She set the letter aside and found another envelope, this one from Tyler. His note was shorter, typed, but raw. "Brittany, I was a jerk in the chat. Calling you a hermit and bringing up your 16th birthday was wrong. I knew it'd hurt you. I've been jealous. You've got your life together, and I'm just a kid who can't even pay for my own stuff. I'm sorry for taking you for granted." Tyler confessed he'd bragged about his sneakers and PlayStation to friends, never mentioning Brittany's money funded them. He said he'd shown the chat screenshots to his basketball coach, who'd called his behavior disgraceful and urged him to make amends. The letters shook Brittany. She hadn't expected apologies, let alone ones that owned up to specific wrongs. Bob and Tyler had never done this before, not after the birthday chat, not during their week of harassment. She showed the letters to Sarah over lunch, hoping for clarity. Sarah read them carefully, then looked up. "This feels real, Brittany, but words aren't enough. They need to show you they've changed." Brittany nodded, torn between hope and caution. She wanted her family back, but not the version that saw her as an ATM or a punching bag. That evening, Brittany called Dr. Emily Harris, a family therapist she'd found online after journaling about her guilt and anger. She explained the birthday chat, the $79,000 she'd given, and the letters. Dr. Harris suggested a phone session with Bob and Tyler to test their sincerity. Brittany hesitated. Could she face them after everything? But she agreed, setting a call for November 18th. She emailed Bob and Tyler proposing the session and stating she'd consider limited support if they committed to therapy and respected her boundaries. Bob replied within hours, "I'll do whatever it takes." Tyler's response was brief, "I'm in." The call was tense at first. Dr. Harris opened by asking Bob to explain his letter. Bob's voice cracked as he spoke. "I was jealous, Brittany. You're 25 doing better than I ever did, and it made me feel like a failure. Calling you pathetic, comparing you to your mom, that was me projecting my shame. I hate myself for it." Brittany's throat tightened, but she stayed silent, letting him continue. He admitted he'd spread lies to Karen and others, painting Brittany as the villain to save face. "I was wrong," he said. "You've been carrying us and I repaid you with garbage." Tyler went next, his voice quieter. "I didn't realize how much I hurt you until I read the chat again. I was mad you had it all money, a cool job, while I'm stuck begging for scraps. I took your help for granted like it was my right." "I'm sorry, Brittany." He paused, then added, "I told my friends the truth that you paid for my gear. They said I'm lucky to have you." Brittany's eyes stung. Tyler's honesty was new, and it hit her hard. Dr. Harris turned to Brittany, asking how she felt. She took a deep breath. "I gave you $3,300 a month for 2 years, $79,000 total. I did it because I love you, but you treated me like I was nothing. Bob, you called me pathetic and used Mom against me. Tyler, you mocked my 16th birthday knowing how much it hurt. I can't just forget that." Her voice shook, but she kept going. "I want us to be a family, but I need respect. No more demands, no more insults." Bob and Tyler didn't interrupt at first. Dr. Harris suggested weekly therapy to rebuild trust, and both agreed. Brittany laid out her terms. She'd resume paying Tyler's $500 monthly basketball coaching, but only if he got a part-time job to cover his personal expenses. For Bob, she'd cover the $1,800 rent for 3 months while he looked for a better job or a roommate, but utilities and groceries, $1,000 monthly, were his responsibility. No more cash handouts, no more emergency requests. They had to attend therapy and show consistent respect, or she'd stop support again. Bob's response was immediate. "I'll do it, Brittany. I'm already applying for warehouse jobs, better pay full-time." Tyler said he'd started asking about jobs at a local sports store. Dr. Harris praised Brittany's clarity, noting that boundaries were key to healing. The call ended with a plan for weekly sessions, and Brittany felt a cautious relief. They'd taken the first step, but she wasn't ready to fully trust them yet. Over the next week, Brittany received formal apology letters, as Dr. Harris had suggested. Bob's was 4 pages, typed detailing every wrong: the birthday chat, his demands for $200 for a TV, his lies to Karen. He wrote about starting therapy on his own, exploring why he'd resented Brittany's success. "I saw your mom in you, her drive, her ambition, and it scared me," he admitted. "But you're not her. You stayed." Tyler's letter was 2 pages handwritten, apologizing for the hermit jab and his entitlement. He'd gotten a job at the sports store working weekends and promised to never take her help for granted again. Brittany met with Dr. Harris alone to process the letters. The therapist helped her see that Bob and Tyler's cruelty stemmed from their own insecurities, Bob's failure as a provider, Tyler's fear of falling behind. "Their apologies show growth," Dr. Harris said, "but trust takes time. Keep your boundaries firm." Brittany agreed. She resumed Tyler's coaching payments after confirming his job, and she sent the $1,800 rent for December. Bob paid the $1,000 utilities and groceries himself, a small but real change. By January 2025, 2 months after the letters, Brittany saw progress. Bob landed a warehouse job paying $2,500 a month, enough to cover rent, with a roommate he'd found. He attended therapy religiously, often sharing insights about his resentment and pride in Brittany. During one session, he choked up saying, "I'm so proud of you, Brittany. I was too dumb to see it before." Tyler worked 10 hours a week, keeping his grades up and his coaching. He visited Brittany's apartment meetings, Sarah and Jason, and admitted her friends were way cooler than he'd thought. He even helped her set up a Pixel Rush-themed game night, a gesture that felt like the old Tyler she'd missed. Family therapy sessions held twice a month via video call grew more honest. Bob owned up to his smear campaign, apologizing for dragging Karen and Mark into it. Tyler admitted he'd badmouthed Brittany to his teammates, calling her stuck-up to seem cool. They discussed the birthday chat in detail, with Bob reading his pathetic message aloud, his voice breaking. "I can't believe I said that," he whispered. Tyler cringed at his hermit text saying I was such an idiot. Brittany shared how their words had made her doubt herself, and for the first time they listened without defensiveness. Brittany didn't resume the full $3,300 monthly support. She paid Tyler's $500 coaching, and for 3 months the $1,800 rent. After that, Bob took over rent with his new income and roommate. Emergencies like a $200 car repair in January were handled case by case, with Brittany requiring receipts and proof. She felt in control, no longer a bank, but a daughter and sister setting terms. 6 months later, by May 2025, the change was undeniable. Bob treated Brittany like an adult, asking about her app projects with genuine interest. He sent her a text after a big Pixel Rush update, "You're killing it, kiddo, proud of you." Tyler grew more independent, saving his sports store wages for college. He and Brittany started texting regularly, sharing memes and game tips, a bond they hadn't had since they were kids. Therapy continued, helping them navigate disagreements without falling into old patterns. The apartment situation stabilized. Bob's $2,500 income and roommate covered the $1,800 rent, and Brittany's name stayed off the lease. She kept her documentation, screenshots, letters, bank records as a safeguard, but the need for it faded. Bob and Tyler respected her boundaries, expressing gratitude for her help without expecting more. Brittany learned hard lessons. Giving money without boundaries had enabled Bob and Tyler's entitlement, letting them resent her while living off her $79,000. Their cruelty came from their own pain. Bob's shame, Tyler's insecurity, but understanding that didn't excuse it. Setting boundaries had forced them to face reality, and their growth proved they could change. Brittany's friends, Sarah, Jason, and Linda, had been her rock, showing her what real support looked like. Therapy with Dr. Harris had given her tools to rebuild, not just with her family, but with herself. As Brittany sat in her apartment, string lights from her birthday party still hanging, she felt hopeful, but grounded. Bob and Tyler were becoming people she could trust again, but she'd never go back to being their ATM. She'd reclaimed her worth, not just as a tech star who'd built Pixel Rush, but as a woman who deserved respect. The family chat, once a battlefield, now held messages of encouragement. Brittany wasn't naive. She knew trust was fragile, but for the first time in years, she believed in a future where her family could be whole.